There are many expenses related to college athletics, but other than those necessary for the sport, students should not be compensated or paid strictly for their participation. We are all college students that have to deal with expensive tuition. This issue of student-athlete compensation is directly related to all of us because many of us will be negatively affected if this thought becomes a reality. It's more than likely that we would be expected to pay more to the school if athletes get compensated. Being an athlete all my life, I know how much time, effort, and dedication it takes to be successful. Even though I'm not a college athlete, I can kind of relate to them. However, being on the paying end rather than the receiving end, I can also fully relate to those who would not benefit from student-athlete compensation. I personally pay for certain aspects of college, and I know that I would be affected if athletes were getting paid. The way I see it, athletes already receive so much, and they don't need extra compensation. They already have scholarships, free travel expenses, all clothes and everything. So why should we have to pay more just so they can have some extra spending money? The rest of us are working just as hard, just in different ways. So why should they get paid because they do more physical activity, whereas we're in the library studying for harder classes? Here's a graph that shows how much money is spent yearly on athletes. The blue line represents athletes, and the bottom line is just students. This one is from Arizona, University of Arizona, and you can see that athletes already get more money from the school than just regular students do. According to the College Board, public college tuition costs about $10,000 per year, not to mention the thousands more dollars required for room, board, books, and other necessities. Do you want that average to go up? I don't. Some argue that college athletes should be paid extra for their work. However, other than the athletes themselves, very few would benefit from this. We're working just as hard, but in different ways, and it's almost like we're being punished for being book smart rather than physically talented. Also, laws created over a century ago need to be altered if we decided to compensate our athletes. In 1905, the National Collegiate Athletic Association, also known as the NCAA, set bylaws that states college athletes must be amateurs to be considered eligible for intercollegiate athletics. Scholarships are already in existence, and college athletes receive all kinds of free gifts already. Travel expenses are paid for, so they don't need more. If they allow college athletes to be paid, they're no longer amateur. If they want to change that law, fine, but then the athletes are no longer college athletes and should be considered professionals. Therefore, we won't have college athletics. This concept of paying athletes will affect us all of us who are going to college and the ones paying tuition. If you think about it, it's literally impossible for athletic departments to cover a stipend for all athletes. On average, schools have about 18 main sports teams, whether that's football, basketball, softball, anything. And if we take an average of 25 athletes, because the football team has around 60 and other teams have less, take an average, multiply those, you get 450 student athletes. If you take that and multiply that by an average of $2,500 per student as their stipend, that comes out to over $1 million per year. And as you can see, that would be very difficult for just one department to provide all those funds. Because of this, the departments would need to get money from an outside source. This would likely be others involved in the school, such as the students and the fans. Many students are paying for their own tuition, but others have it covered by their family. Either way, someone is going to take a hit, and it's not fair. Even if you aren't paying for college, you may be affected in other ways around campus. For example, at San Jose State, we get in free to almost all athletic games. If athletes start getting paid, that would more than likely mean that we have to start paying to enter the arena, field, or any other games that we go to watch. It's like we're being punished to support our school. We already pay a certain amount for our tuition. If we agree to start paying athletes, that money has to come from somewhere. It would already create an increase if we paid just the football team, but what about the hundreds of other athletes that played the dozens of other sports? Not only will we have to pay football players, basketball players, volleyball players, we'll have to pay everyone. Here's just a small list of some teams at most colleges, and it's not just they're not co-ed teams, there's two for each. So you multiply, football is boys sport only, but if you take badminton or swimming, you have boys and girls teams, so the numbers add up. This brings up the question what should be considered a sport. If we pay all of those teams, what's to say that dance isn't a sport? Why should the dancers be paid, or the cheerleaders? They're not technically considered NCAA sports, but that's going to raise a question. You can't just pay one kind of athlete, you have to pay them all. Some may argue that there are benefits to paying athletes, but many are irrational and shouldn't be supported. They say athletes spend a great deal of time on the field and risk injury when playing a sport. But we spend a great deal of time taking harder classes, studying, and while maintaining jobs and staying involved in other organizations such as Greek sororities and fraternities. College should be about education first, and then athletics and social life somewhere after that. A study done by Raymond G. Schneider and published in the College Student Journal stated that many college athletes believe that they should be paid because it would not only decrease cheating, but they deserve it because they are the ones generating revenue. Bill Musselman, a football coach from South Alabama, says that athletes should be paid because they raise money and have to miss class. But wasn't that a sacrifice they chose to make when they attended the school? They chose to risk all other things in order to partake in athletics in hopes of becoming professional. If you're saying that we should pay athletes because they're risking their future, that's absurd. It's not fair that they get all the attention. By only paying athletes, you're basically punishing kids who came here to get an education and work towards a successful future, not in the field of athletics. Overall, the negatives outweigh the positives. The only people that will benefit from this will be the athletes themselves. And no matter where the funds come from, we, the students, who are here purely for education, get nothing. We are all in college, and once we graduate, others will take our spots. Then our kids and grandkids will attend college, and this decision will not only affect us, but our loved ones too. Hopefully everyone can come to the conclusion that we should not pay the athletes to play.